If you ever see a listing for a used iPhone on the dark web, don't. I'm serious. It's not just a scam or some edgy joke. It's worse. I thought I could handle it, that I'd laugh at the superstition, but right now, I wish I could go back and stop myself. Because once you touch something like this, it doesn't let go. It's 3:33 in the morning, the kind of time people call the devil's hour as a joke, until you live through it. The phone on my desk is glowing in the dark, screen lighting up even though I turned it off hours ago. It vibrates once, then twice, before erupting with a ringtone I've never heard before. Low, drawn-out chimes that echo like bells ringing underwater. The number on the display is impossible. All zeros, a string of nothingness. And against every shred of common sense, I answer. At first, all I hear is static, faint and crackling, like wind rushing through broken wires. Then the whispers start. Not one voice, but dozens, maybe hundreds, layered on top of each other. Some are frantic, some are crying, some sound like they're screaming from far away. But underneath them all, one voice cuts through. My own. Says my name, slowly, like it's testing the shape of it. I nearly drop the phone. My throat locks. Don't hang up, the voice says. Thin, stretched, like an old recording of me played on broken speakers. The air in my apartment feels heavy, pressing against my chest. Shadows twitch at the edges of the room, straining toward the glow of the screen. I press the phone harder to my ear, not because I want to, but because something in that voice makes it impossible to stop listening. Then, through the whispers, another voice joins in. Not mine, not human. We're already here. The sound doesn't just come from the phone. It seeps into the room, curling under the door, bleeding out of the shadows. For the first time, I know I'm not alone. And here's the part you won't believe. I think the phone smiled. Not on the screen, on the black glass itself. A ripple, like something behind it grinning at me. I should have smashed it then, ended it before it could spread. But I didn't, and that's why you're hearing this now. But maybe I should explain how it all started. I'd love to tell you I bought that phone because of some noble reason, but the truth is uglier. I was bored, restless, and curious in the way people get when it's 2 a.m. and they're too wired to sleep. Some people doom scroll social media. I like to wander places I shouldn't, the kind of corners of the internet where the air feels heavier, where you know you're only one wrong click away from seeing something you can't unsee. That night, I found myself on a marketplace buried 3 layers deep. Not the flashy drug and weapons shops you hear about in news stories. This one had a section simply called oddities. Most of the listings were garbage. Grimy dolls with haunted in the title, bottles of dirt labeled grave soil, cursed wedding dress that looked like it came from the back of a thrift store. But then I saw it. Used iPhone. Haunted. Works perfectly. That was the whole title. No emojis, no screaming caps lock. Just those words. Haunted. Works perfectly. The ad had 3 photos. The first showed the phone lying face down on a wooden table. The second showed the cracked charger bundled beside it. The third made me stop scrolling. It was the lock screen. Not a stock wallpaper or a selfie, but a photo of a room. A bedroom, maybe. A narrow bed pressed against a wall. A lamp that tilted too far to the left. Half-closed curtains letting in a slice of light. At first glance, normal. But the longer I stared, the more wrong it felt. The angle was off, like someone had crouched in the corner to take it. And there was something about the space itself that tugged at my memory, like I'd been there once in a dream. The description beneath the photos was typed in all lowercase. Don't use after 3 a.m. Do not answer if it rings more than once. Buyer assumes all risk. That was it. No details, no specs, nothing about storage or battery health. Just warnings dressed up as instructions. I should have laughed and clicked away. But instead, I felt my pulse quicken. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was an art piece. Or maybe, just maybe, it was real. And if it was real, wasn't this exactly what I'd been looking for all those nights? A story nobody else could tell? The price was almost insulting. $40 in Bitcoin, shipping included. Less than dinner at a chain restaurant. I told myself it was practically free entertainment, that if it turned out to be fake, at least I'd get a good laugh. But a darker thought slithered in, one I couldn't shake. What if it wasn't fake? What if I really could hold a cursed object in my hand? I scrolled through the rest of the oddities category. There were other temptations. A VHS tape labeled, "Do Not Watch." A cracked mirror, last owned by a missing priest. A silver locket described as, "Never open while you're alone." Each one made my skin crawl just reading the captions. But none of them had the pull of the iPhone. Because unlike a doll or a locket, a phone is part of your life. It's always with you, always listening, always watching. I clicked, "Buy now." There was no cart, no order summary, just a line of code and a message. "Your item will arrive within 3 business days." I leaned back in my chair, half laughing at myself, half buzzing with adrenaline. Somewhere out there, a stranger now had my name and address. Somewhere out there, a box was being prepared with my name written on it. The waiting was worse than the purchase. For the next 2 days, I refreshed the tracking compulsively. The package moved through cities I'd never heard of, each scan pulling it closer. By the 3rd day, the status changed, "Out for delivery." That night, I jumped every time I heard footsteps in the hall. When the knock finally came, sharp and ordinary, my chest seized. I opened the door to find a battered cardboard box sitting alone on the mat. No return label, no branding. Just my name, scrawled in black marker across the top. I brought it inside, heart hammering, and set it on the table. And at first glance, everything seemed perfectly normal. I've unboxed plenty of phones before. Shiny new slabs of glass and aluminum that slide out like treasures. This wasn't that. This was anticlimax wrapped in cardboard. The box wasn't even a phone box, just a beat-up Amazon package with one strip of brittle tape holding it shut. Inside, crumpled newspaper that smelled faintly of mildew. I dug through it until my fingers brushed something cold and solid. The iPhone lay at the bottom, screen down, as if someone had been careful to place it that way. It wasn't the latest model, maybe 4 or 5 years old. The back was scuffed, the edges dinged up like it had been dropped a few times. I lifted it out, surprised by how heavy it felt, heavier than my own phone. That was the first thing that registered, the weight. The second thing was the smell. It wasn't strong, just faint enough to question if I was imagining it. Metallic, sharp, with a sour undertone, like dried pennies and old sweat. I held it closer, sniffed, then shook my head. Great, haunted and disgusting. The screen was dark, streaked with fingerprints that wouldn't wipe away no matter how hard I rubbed with my shirt. In the right light, I noticed shallow scratches crisscrossing the glass. One just above the home button almost looked like letters. I tilted it, squinting. Maybe J? Or F? Or maybe just wishful thinking. I flipped it over. The Apple logo was intact but dulled, faintly warped by heat or pressure. Along the bottom edge, tiny notches looked like someone had pried it open with a knife. And scratched into the aluminum, so faint I almost missed it, were initials. RK. I muttered, "Well, thanks, RK, for passing on your cursed garbage." The included charger was tangled and stiff. The cord yellowed. The brick adapter had a crack running through it, but against my better judgment, I plugged it in anyway. The screen flickered almost immediately, jumping from pitch black to the familiar Apple logo. For a moment, relief. It worked, but then the logo blinked. Just once, a subtle stutter, as though it had briefly distorted into something else before snapping back. I frowned, but the boot-up continued, smooth and ordinary. The phone unlocked without asking for a passcode. The home screen loaded, and I almost laughed with disappointment. No bleeding wallpaper, no demonic chants, just a generic blue background. Rows of default apps. It looked so normal. I powered it off and on again, half expecting something dramatic, but it was the same. Still, I couldn't shake the tension humming in my chest. It felt wrong that a supposedly haunted phone could seem this boring. I started joking to myself just to cut the edge. Maybe the ghost is still buffering. Maybe it's on airplane mode. That was when I noticed the wallpaper had changed. Not a new picture exactly, still that same generic blue, but it had shifted somehow. The gradient looked steeper, darker at the bottom than before. Subtle, like someone had tugged on a corner of reality and stretched it. I stared too long, waiting to catch it moving. My eyes watered, and I blinked, and the screen looked normal again. I could have tossed it then. Should have. If I had just thrown it out, this story would end here. A dumb anecdote about wasted money and paranoia. But I didn't, because right as I was about to set it aside, I noticed something strange tucked away on the home screen. Among the default apps messages, calendar, Safari, there was a folder. Not one I'd created, not one I'd ever seen on an iPhone. Its name was a single word, Keep, and the phone was already unlocked, waiting for me to tap it. The gray folder labeled Keep wasn't just staring at me. It felt like it was breathing. I tapped it, half expecting the phone to glitch or crash, but instead, the screen filled with photos. Hundreds of them. At first, they seemed random. Blurry shots of empty rooms, dark corners, peeling wallpaper. My first thought was, oh, preloaded junk, probably from a previous owner. But as I scrolled, details started to emerge. One photo showed a hallway with faint light spilling through a cracked door. Another showed a bedroom with the bed pushed against the wall. A lamp tilted in that odd way that made my stomach sink. Each photo had a timestamp, but not normal timestamps. Some were days ahead, weeks ahead. Some were even years into the future. January 14th, 2027. October 31st, 2028. I froze, and then I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Some of the rooms looked familiar. Not just vaguely, but exactly. The crooked lamp, the scuff marks on the floorboards, the shape of the curtains, like a mirror reflecting my own apartment. My rational brain tried to intervene. Stock images, staged photos, coincidence. But I knew better. One picture made me gasp aloud. The living room, my living room, taken seconds earlier or maybe minutes. I don't know how I could tell, but I felt it in my gut. Something had captured me without my knowledge. Then a new message appeared. No notification, no sender, nothing but words glowing against the black screen. Nice place. I stared. Nothing else happened. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. I typed, "Who is this?" and hit send. The message disappeared instantly. My outbox empty. My question unanswered. Glitch? I whispered to myself, but the words sounded hollow. Later, as I tried to sleep, Siri activated on its own. I hadn't touched the home button, hadn't said anything. The screen remained black. Then the voice came, soft, mechanical, yet unmistakably human. "Do you want me to describe the photos for you?" I snapped the phone upright. "No, shut up." "Okay," it replied, and then quieter, almost a whisper. "But you've already seen them." My body went cold. The phone had never needed me to touch it. It was already aware, already interacting, already watching. I left the phone on the counter, face down, convincing myself I'd return to it in the morning. The hours crawled by, silent, heavy. Then, in the middle of the night, I woke with a dry throat and a pounding heart. The room was quiet, too quiet. The kitchen light flicked on when I reached for the switch, and there it was, glowing faintly as if it had never been turned off. A new message appeared on the dark screen. Smile. I hadn't typed it. I hadn't touched it. The gallery app opened by itself. The most recent photo loaded, and my stomach dropped. It was me, standing barefoot in the kitchen, staring at the phone, taken just moments ago. I dropped to the floor, chest tight, hands shaking. My logical mind scrambled for answers. Security camera glitch, a staged prank, something explainable. But nothing fit. This wasn't normal. This wasn't human. I shoved the phone in a drawer and leaned against the wall, trying to convince myself it was over, that it was just a trick left behind by a careless previous owner. But the truth was creeping in, impossible to ignore. This phone wasn't just haunted. It was alive, watching, waiting, and that's when it rang. Not a normal ringtone, not a notification sound, an actual ring, vibrating through the drawer and my chest, pulling me into the dark. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just observing anymore. The phone was trying to reach me. It rang at 3:02 a.m., not the joking devil's hour, just early enough that I knew the rest of the world was asleep. The phone vibrated violently against the hardwood floor, rattling the drawer I'd shoved it into. I froze. The caller ID was impossible. 8 zeros stretched across the screen, glowing faintly in the dark. I stared at it, fingers trembling, and for a moment, considered ignoring it. But some morbid curiosity or stupidity made me swipe answer. First, only static. The kind that makes your ears itch, like nails scraping a chalkboard far away. Then, beneath the white noise, a whisper. Soft, deliberate, and unmistakably human. My name, it hissed. I know your name, said it again, and again. Each time, more distorted, like it was stretching my syllables across some cruel echo chamber. My blood ran cold. Who is this? I croaked. My voice sounded small, fragile in the oppressive silence. A pause, and then, don't hang up. I glanced at the screen. The number never changed. All zeros. No name. Nothing. Just that long, empty sequence staring back at me. The static swelled into low whispers, overlapping voices that seemed to come from the walls themselves, not the phone. I pressed the device to my ear, heart hammering, trying to make sense of the impossible. Why? Who are you? I asked, breath hitching. A new voice slithered through the static. Familiar, mine, but wrong. Thinner, hollow, mocking. You shouldn't have bought me, it said. I stumbled backward, nearly hitting the counter. The drawer rattled as if some unseen hand had brushed against it. Every shadow in the room seemed to lean toward the glowing phone, quivering. I have to know. I whispered to myself. I had to. I couldn't just hang up. Not yet. Another whisper, this one layered with dozens of others, spiraled through the room. We're already inside. The hair on my arms stood on end. I could feel it crawling under my skin, the kind of primal fear that bypasses reason. The phone vibrated violently again, shaking as if trying to escape my hand. I wanted to throw it across the room, smash it, burn it, anything. But something, some unexplainable compulsion, kept me holding it, watching, listening, waiting. The whispers faded slowly, leaving only the faintest trace of my own voice echoing back to me. I could still hear it in my mind. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. And though terror clawed at every nerve, I knew I couldn't. I had to keep the phone. I had to see what came next, even if the cost was everything. Because whatever this thing was, it wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The night after the first call, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the apartment sounded amplified. Every shadow a potential watcher. And then the messages started. Not through my usual apps, this was different. The iPhone screen lit up on its own. The gray folder, keep open, and a new message glowed in jagged white letters. Look behind you. I spun around, heart hammering. Nothing. just the dim outline of my furniture, the familiar shapes of my living room. I laughed nervously, trying to convince myself it was a prank, a delayed notification, something logical. But my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my cup of water, and it shattered across the floor. The next day, I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a preloaded app designed to scare. Maybe someone else had hacked it. Maybe it was alive. That thought made me shiver uncontrollably, but I pushed it down. I had to record everything, document the anomalies. If something happened, at least there'd be proof. I started a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence. Photos, screenshots, videos, anything the phone did, I saved. The first recordings seemed normal. Videos of my apartment, simple angles, nothing threatening. But as I played them back, glitches began appearing. Static that hummed like voices in the background. Frames that flickered just long enough to hint at movement where none should exist. Then the photos started. Not staged or stock images this time. Photos of me, sleeping in my bed, sitting on the couch, standing in the kitchen. Each image had been taken while I wasn't looking. I hadn't noticed the phone move. I didn't remember picking it up. Yet there it was, silently capturing me in intimate, vulnerable moments. The messages continued, growing more daring. Closer. Do you hear us? We're here. I couldn't delete them. Every time I tried, they vanished, only to reappear the next time the phone woke itself. Calls began as well. Short, distorted rings that made my ears ache. When I answered or when the phone auto-answered, nothing. Just static. First, but occasionally I'd hear screams. High-pitched, desperate, distorted. Sometimes it sounded like mine. Other times I couldn't tell whose it was, but it was always panicked, always frantic, and it always left me frozen, staring at the screen with a lump in my throat. The iPhone wasn't content with just watching anymore. It wanted to be proof. It demanded acknowledgement. I started leaving a camera running overnight, pointed at the phone. Every morning, I reviewed the footage, expecting the usual. Nothing. But each video showed subtle movement. Edges of the phone twitching, the screen glowing faintly in moments when it shouldn't have. Frames flickered, shadows shifted, and once, a frame caught it. A faint reflection in the black screen. A figure I didn't recognize standing behind me. The escalation was relentless. The phone refused to be ignored, refused to be mundane. It demanded participation, attention, and then I found it, hidden deep in the gray folder, a subfolder I hadn't noticed before, labeled Owners. I hesitated. The name alone felt like a warning. Inside, there were videos, diary entries, audio clips, records of every previous person who had bought this phone. Some had disappeared. Some had ended up in mental hospitals. Some didn't make it out at all. I realized with a sinking feeling that this was a chain, a sequence, a trap. The phone carried its history like a pulse, and now it wanted me to add mine. I wanted to throw it. I wanted to burn it, but I couldn't. Some unexplainable compulsion held me. I had to see it through. I had to know what came next. And as I stared at the glowing screen, the messages repeating in an unholy rhythm, I understood. This wasn't just a haunted phone. It was a machine, a recording device, predator, and I was its latest target. I opened the owner's folder with trembling fingers. The screen glowed, illuminating my face in a sickly blue light. Inside were subfolders labeled with initials, dates, and in one case, just a question mark. I hesitated on the first one, then clicked. The video began. A young man, roughly my age, sitting at a desk, holding the same phone I now possessed. His eyes darted nervously to the corners of the frame. A diary lay open beside him. He read from it, voice trembling. It started small. Messages, photos. Nothing serious. But then I realized the phone knew when I slept, when I ate, when I wasn't looking. I thought I was being paranoid. And now I can't leave my apartment. The screen flickered. For a moment, I swore I saw shadows move behind him, stretching toward the phone. Then the video cut to black. I clicked through the next subfolder. This one contained audio clips, groaning, static, and a voice. My own voice, though I hadn't recorded it, whispering things I would never say. Another clip ended in a scream, distorted, inhuman, echoing far too long to be a human sound. Each entry was the same. People who'd bought the phone thinking it was cheap or intriguing. Some tried to destroy it. Some tried to hide it. None succeeded. Each time, the recordings captured their decline. They became shadows of themselves, speaking to nothing, laughing when they shouldn't, terrified at everything. I laughed nervously, dark humor to keep myself sane. Great! I muttered under my breath. I basically bought a death subscription. One folder contained diary pages scanned into PDFs, scribbled notes, frantic handwriting. The phone moves when I'm not looking. I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was on my desk again, charging itself. I can hear whispers when it's off. I'm not sure if I'm awake or dreaming. I paused on the final entry. My stomach turned to ice. It wasn't a diary or a recording. It was a message, typed like it was waiting for me. I know who will buy this next. I've been waiting for you. The text blinked once, and I swore the room got colder. Couldn't breathe. I realized what the folder meant. This phone wasn't just haunted, kept track. Every owner added to its history, and now it was actively observing me. I leaned back in my chair, eyes darting around the apartment. The shadows felt closer, the air heavier. I could almost hear faint whispers threading through the walls. The sense of being watched wasn't a metaphor anymore. I was being monitored in real time. Every rational part of me screamed to throw the phone away, smash it, burn it, disconnect it from the world. But a compulsion held me. I had to see. I had to know. Some entries hinted at a larger conspiracy. One file contained a list of purchases from the dark web marketplace. Each item a so-called cursed object linked to previous owners of the phone. Dolls, tapes, mirrors, locket charms, objects that left tracks of horror behind them, waiting for the next buyer. The more I explored, the more I felt like the phone was part of a network, a hive of cursed devices feeding on whoever touched them. I glanced down at my hands. The phone lay there on the table, innocuous, ordinary, and yet I could feel it pulsing, as if it were aware that I was awake, aware that I was reading the past, aware that I was next in line. I swallowed hard and whispered, mostly to myself, "You're watching me now, aren't you?" The phone didn't respond. Not yet. But I didn't need it to. I knew it already had. After days of escalating terror, I began noticing that the phone didn't need to be in my hands to act. My smart lights flickered without warning, dimming or brightening in a pattern that almost mimicked breathing. The smart TV turned itself on late at night, showing static-filled channels, or worse, video clips of my own apartment. Every time I looked away, I'd catch movement on screen. Shadows shifting unnaturally, corners darkening even when the lights were on. It was no longer just a phone. It was a controller, puppet master, Voice memos appeared spontaneously. I found one marked with my own name. Hesitating, I tapped it. My voice filled the room, whispering things I had never said. The tone was too casual to be threatening, yet the content chilled me to the bone. Don't look behind you. They're closer than you think. I rewound the recording, convinced it was some glitch. But the audio wasn't fragmented or muffled. It was precise, clear, unnervingly calm. My own intonation, my cadence, my phrasing. Things I would never have uttered voluntarily. And then reality itself began to feel wrong. Doors that were closed would be ajar when I returned. Drawers I had locked were open. Objects on my counters shifted positions overnight. I questioned my memory at first, sleep deprivation, paranoia, but the recordings and the photos left no room for doubt. Someone or something was inside my apartment with me, or at least watching everything through the phone. The phone screen pulsed faintly on the table as if breathing, the gray folder glowing without any interaction. I opened it and saw new files. Short videos showing my apartment from angles I didn't recognize. The corners of the frames seemed to shimmer, as if reality itself were bending. Then I noticed the most disturbing one. A single frame where my face, pale and wide-eyed, looked directly into the camera, but the expression wasn't mine. It was exaggerated, twisted, like a mask painted over my own features. I wanted to delete it, smash the phone, throw it into the river, anything. But a voice in my head whispered that doing so would only accelerate what was coming. That it wanted this compliance, this attention. Messages continued to appear. Closer. Soon. We're ready. I realized with horror that the phone wasn't haunted. It was hunting. It knew my habits, my fears, my weaknesses. Every movement I made was predictable, every pattern visible, and it thrived on observation. One morning, I found a voice memo I had never seen before. The file was titled in a single cryptic word, "Impossible." I hesitated before pressing play, and when I did, my stomach dropped. It was a recording of me talking to myself, or at least it sounded like me narrating the exact sequence of events I had experienced over the past week. Except every warning, every dread, every moment of terror was described before it even happened. I froze. I realized that the phone had knowledge of my actions, my very life, beyond what any normal device could hold. It was predicting me, scripting me, rewriting reality around me. And yet, it wasn't done. A new message appeared on the screen, in jagged, pale letters. You must perform the ritual to end it. I stared, unblinking. My hands shook violently. The command was so calm, so direct, that it felt almost gentle. But I knew better. This was a trap. And somehow I knew that if I refused, the consequences would be final. The room seemed smaller now. Shadows leaned closer to the edges of my vision. The lights flickered again. The phone vibrated in time with my racing heart. Every instinct screamed to throw it out, to run, to escape. But the phone wanted me. It demanded my attention. It demanded my obedience. I didn't know what the ritual was, or if it would save me. I didn't know if anything would. All I knew was that I couldn't ignore it, because the phone wasn't just alive. It was patient, and it had been waiting for me. The instructions appeared one evening, glowing on the phone screen in pale, deliberate letters: candles, circle, chant, do not stop. There were no further explanations, no reason why this ritual would work, no guarantee I'd survive. But the compulsion to obey was overwhelming. I gathered what I could. Old candles from a forgotten drawer, matches brittle from age, and cleared a space in the middle of my apartment to form the circle. The air felt thick, almost alive, and every time I glanced at the phone, the gray folder pulsed, like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. I lit the candles, placing them at precise intervals. Shadows leapt along the walls, distorted, elongated, twisting in ways physics shouldn't allow. The room seemed to contract around me as I began chanting the words that had appeared on the screen. My voice trembled, faltering at first, then growing louder, almost commanding. For a moment, I thought it was working. The phone sat in the center of the circle, screen bright, but the glow felt contained, like it was being trapped. My heartbeat slowed slightly. Relief, momentary, fragile, washed over me. Then the room shifted. The lights dimmed and snapped off, leaving only the phone's eerie glow. The candles flickered violently, casting shadows that weren't my own. The whispers returned, louder now, layered over one another. A symphony of voices both familiar and foreign. My own voice echoed back from the phone, chanting my words faster than I could. Distorted, wrong. I stumbled back, almost knocking over the circle. The phone vibrated violently, and then a single message appeared, chilling in its simplicity. "Now you belong to us." The whispering intensified, filling every corner of the apartment. It wasn't just the phone speaking. It was the room, the walls, the shadows, every surface vibrating with its presence. The ritual hadn't freed me. It had bound me further. I realized, with a sinking dread, that the phone had never intended to be contained or banished. It had wanted participation, compliance. My belief that I could end it had been the trap. By performing the ritual, I had completed the final step it needed to fully integrate me into its network. Panic surged. I wanted to throw the phone, smash the candles, run, but it didn't matter. The compulsion held me. Invisible chains wrapped tight around my mind. My hands moved in ways I didn't control, returning the phone to the circle, holding it as if it weighed nothing but demanded everything. The shadows shifted, twisting into shapes that mimicked figures I'd seen in past recordings. Faces of previous owners stared back at me, frozen in terror, mouths open in silent screams. I understood then. They were still here, trapped, folded into the phone, feeding its hunger. The whispers became a single voice, cold and omnipotent. "You are ours now. You always were." And in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone in narrating this. I was narrating for them, for everyone who had touched the device before me, and for anyone who would come after. The phone pulsed in my hands, steady and insistent. The candles guttered, shadows writhing around me. My reflection in the dark screen showed a pale, hollowed version of myself, eyes wide, soul exposed. And then silence. Not peace, not release. Silence thick with promise. Because the story wasn't over. I'm recording this now, writing, narrating, uploading, because someone has to know. Someone has to warn you. And yet, I don't know if it matters. The phone sits across the room, screen dim but pulsing faintly, like it's breathing, like it's watching me while I speak. Every time I hear a notification, I flinch. Every shadow makes me turn my head. I can't tell if I'm safe, if the ritual changed anything, or if I'm just another layer in its history. I think about the other owners, how their lives ended or vanished entirely. I think about the messages, the photos, the calls. I think about what's waiting for the next person brave or stupid enough to touch it. I wanted to be anonymous. I wanted to post this as a story, a warning, a confession. But the phone, It wouldn't allow it. It insists I document, insists I reveal the truth while keeping myself tethered. And now, as I speak, I can feel it nudging the narrative, adjusting the tension, pulling at the corners of reality. So consider this your warning. If you ever see a listing for a used iPhone on the dark web, don't click, don't buy, don't even look. And if, by some terrible chance, you already have it, know that it is never really yours. It observes, it waits, and it always feeds. I wish I could tell you I survived this. I wish I could promise that I'm still here, intact, sane. But the buzzing continues in the background, faint yet insistent, like a heartbeat that isn't mine. I don't know if anyone reading this will believe it. I don't know if anyone will be able to resist it. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't the first haunted device, and it won't be the last. If this video disappears, if you never hear from me again, you'll know why.